I was born on a farm and raised in Nebraska. My parents had 5 kids, all for the sake of labor. That's right, we had no migratory labor, no unions, no strikes, just kids working. And the fashion statement at that time was bib overhauls and hand-me-downs. We went to a really strict rural church. Boys sat on one side, girls sat on the other side, moms, dads, babies, uncles, aunts, all in the center under the watchful eye of the minister. In those days, most sermons were about sin and the wages of sin. Well, I didn't understand wages because, we weren't paid anything. So, it would start out this way. The minister would slowly climb the pulpit, and he'd look out over his sheep, and he would say, "You are all sinners. You sin when you play, you sin when you breathe, you sin when you eat, and you sin when you lay. And the wages of sin are death." And he would look at us boys down there. And my buddy Daryl always give him the finger under his suit coat, Anyway, he would continue on. He'd say, "It all started with a talking snake and an apple." And the snake would say, "Eve, take a bite of the apple." And Eve said, "Oh, okay." And she took a bite. And then she said, "Adam, come over here. Adam, take a bite of the apple." "Oh, come on, Eve. I already ate. I'm not hungry." "Take a bite." Okay. Wow. Eve, you got parts. Oh, and that's when clothes were invented. And, ever since then, Adam's had to pay for the wages of sin with Apple Pay and a snakeskin wallet. Anyway, we as kids enjoyed visiting our grandpa and grandma. They lived in Minnesota. Now, Grandpa and Grandma were Norwegians. And Grandpa was a farmer. He loved to fish. Grandma was a great cook. She had a big garden. And the story was, on their honeymoon, they were headed for Duluth. And Grandpa was driving, and he got really brazen, and he put his hand just on the inside of my grandma's knee. Well, they kept driving, for quite a while. And then my grandma turned to him and said, "You could go farther." And he did. He drove all the way to Duluth. Anyway, Grandpa and Grandma, after they'd been married a little bit, decided they were going to join the Lutheran Church. This is what you do when you live in that area. You become a member of the Lutheran Church. And so they went in and talked to the minister, and he said, "Well, if you want to be a member, you're going to have to prove you're worthy of it. You're going to have to abstain from sex for 30 days. Can you imagine that? Anyway, my grandpa says, "Well, we'll give it a try, And so 30 days later, they came to the minister, and the minister said, "Well, folks, how did it go?" And my grandpa says, "Well, we were pretty good up till day 28, And then, Lena, she was leaning over that bag of their potatoes, and I couldn't help myself. I just had to have her right there." And the minister says, "Well, folks, maybe you can come back in a year or two and try again." "Yeah, well, the grocery store owner wasn't too happy with us either. He told us not to come back." So Grandpa, as a farmer, he was doing pretty good. And he decided he could buy himself a brand new John Deere, the very best, John Deere 4-row corn picker. He was so excited, he told all the neighbors. And then the next morning, when Lena came in with breakfast, well, he kind of swatted her on the rear, and he said, "Lena, you're getting to be as big as a 4-row corn picker." Well, that night they were in bed, and Grandpa had a twinkle in his eye. He kind of reached over, and he just tapped Lena slightly, and he said, "Lena." And boy, she rolled over with her back to him, So he isn't going to give up, you know, he's going to keep trying. And he taps her again. Lena, nothing, not a thing. He's not going to give up. He taps her really, really, really hard, and he goes, Lena, please. And she rolls over, and she looks him in the eye, and she says, you want me to start this here 4-row corn picker that's $40,000 and pick one little ear of corn? Now, Grandma decided that she was going to get a job. She wanted to be independent. And she noticed there was an opening at the chicken factory there in Bloomcrest, Minnesota. And so she went in to get the job. And there was a young man who saw her come in, and my grandma reminded him so much of his grandma. And he said, come on over here, I'll help you fill out your application. And he said, okay, what's your name? And she says, well, my name is Lena Svensson. Oh, that's a beautiful name. And I see you have blue eyes. Yeah, I do. And he writes that down. And he says, now, Lena, how tall are you? I be 5'8" tall. Oh, that's a nice height. And Lena, this job is for chicken plucking. Are you a good chicken plucker? Oh, I be the best in all of Minnesota. Well, that's good enough, right, for me. And then he noticed on the application it said, wait. Oh, you know, he didn't want to embarrass Lena because she was a big woman, so he thought he'd use humor. And he said, well, you know, Lena, you're a big, beautiful woman. Now, if you were a man, Lena, why, I'll bet you could play for the Green Bay Packers. And Lena looked at him, got a scowl on her face, and said, oh, no, I only play with OLLI's Packer. And anyway, later on in life, you know, as time progressed, Grandpa noticed in the paper that there was something about Social Security. This is when this just came out, you know, and he told Lena, he says, it says Social Security, you can get money from Social Security. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to go downtown, and I'm going to give myself a try, you know. She says, oh, Bill, you never get that. No. Well, he went downtown. Later on in the afternoon, he comes back, and he's waving a check in front of Lena. See, they gave me some money. They gave me some money. She says, well, what did you do? Well, I opened my shirt, and I showed him my white hairs on my chest. And they gave me this money. She says, well, you should have taken your pants down. You would have got full disability out of them. Grandma was feeling really bad one day. You know, they're getting older, and gosh, her arms are getting flabby, and her breasts are hanging down, and her hips are getting wide and fat, and her legs like sausages, and she's feeling really bad. And she says, Ollie, I could use a really good compliment just about now. And Ollie looks her up very carefully up and down, and he says, well, you got the pretty good eyesight there, Lena. You know. Anyway, let's see. So anyway, after that had happened, I've got to think a second. Ollie and Lena, when they celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary, you know, they went to a restaurant called the Ocean View Restaurant. Yeah, and they went there because, you know, Lena liked her wine. Oh, yeah. And 25th wedding anniversary, Ocean View Restaurant. Yeah. And that's because they had great chicken selection then, you know. 50th wedding anniversary, Ocean View Restaurant. Wheelchair accessibility, you know. So, 60th wedding anniversary. Well, you can guess it. They all went to the Ocean View Restaurant because they'd never been there before, you know. Just got it. One more thing here. Give me a second. I left one out. I'll see if I can find it. If I can't, we'll... Anyway, I can't think of the other thing I was going to tell you, but one of the things Forrest Gump used to say about life, he said, well, life is like a box of chocolates. And then Kinky Freeman came out with the saying that time flies like an arrow and fruit flies like a banana. Thank you very much.
James Mowitz, everybody. Let's hear it for James.
Thank you.
Come on down. James Mowitz.